Welcome everyone to this topic on constructor and destructor here. Now we are going to talk about that how we can create constructors and destructors in the Python programs. So the topics which we are going to cover in this one is constructor and destructor and decorators in Python. That's what we are going to understand. So first of all, what is the purpose of constructor and destructor over here? Now these concepts are basically used in case of the particular class concept here. Now whenever we initialize a particular class, that is where a constructor is implemented and it's used with the keyword called init, and self is something which we are trying to specify that reference to the current class. So init is used to refer the particular one in which we are trying to run a particular constructor. So usually in case of constructor we always do some kind of initialization process so that once the class is particularly loaded up, so we will initialize some values, some attributes which we can use or we can refer to in multiple methods or something like that. Similarly, destructor also can be used, is basically defined with the keyword called del. Now if a particular object is created and we are basically trying to do the particular object, if the object is execution is completed, so what will happen? The destructor will be called and both the constructor and a particular destructor is called in a particular sequence. So both of them can have, you can basically do some operations like in which you can have some file opened up into the case of constructor and then you can further close them up in case of destructors. So these kind of typical implementations you can use in case of classes here, with which you will be pretty much able to have that how we can do the execution on this one. Remember, constructor is something which will be automatically initialized when you get particular object of a particular class, but destructor is something which you have to forcefully execute so that you can perform those kind of steps. In case you want to create a particular class in which you are trying to perform some steps, now you can do those steps in a particular constructor, but if you want to delete some files, if you want to clean up some files there, so that's what you can perform in case of destructors. So these two concepts we can use, according to which we can function and we can proceed with our setup. Now we can have multiple constructors also there. Not only the one, we can have multiples over here. Now in this example you can see that we have a particular class called date, and there we have a default constructor in which we are setting up the values called year, month and day here. Now in this case what happens that whenever we want to create a particular object, so at that moment of time we can provide some variables. Again we have a class method over here, dmy and mdy. So these two class methods are available there, which is again definitely having some different kind of attributes. So they will be using some different attributes there. In this one you can see that they are trying to provide some parameters. They are trying to have some different kind of attributes specified on this one. Now when you do the initialization, when I say like a is equal to date 2016, 12 and 11, so in this case what will really happen that a particular year, or if I want to fetch the year, so this is a kind of a initialization which I am doing. Now I just simply did a.year file, which means that I am just trying to fetch the year attribute. If I say like print a.month, then the particular month value will be printed, and if I say like a.date, then the particular day value will be printed. Now this is something which is happening because of the constructor, the init constructor, which is happening over here. Now similarly, if in case we don't want to go for the constructors, we want to go for some other class methods. So in this case I am saying like b is equal to date dot dmy, and in there I am just trying to give the value called day as 9. Now in this case you can see the parameters itself is different. The position of the parameters is different here. Once this is done, what will happen in b.year value, you will be able to get the 2015, and in the last one you will be able to get 2014 over here. So you can see in this way that how exactly the different kind of constructors are there. Now the default one, you can see that we don't have to call any kind of class method. In the default one, definitely the parameters will be initialized, and the other class methods we can always use to perform that particular configuration. So these are the different ways that how we can go for multiple constructors and how we can make use of them by creating the objects and by calling up the different options. Now decorators in Python is a very important here for the overall Python programming mechanism. Now in Python, function acts as object and they can refer to, and they can particularly return some values also, and we can also have functions defined within the other functions also. We can have nested functions also. So decorators are used to wrap another function so that it can extend the behavior of a particular wrapped function. So in order to extend, or in order to have the particular behavior extended of a particular function, we can use the wrap, and these wraps are known as decorators. So decorators helps to take functions as argument within another function. So that's another benefit which we get, that helps us to extend the default functionalities of function. Decorators call those functions that are used as arguments within the wrapped function. So this is the real purpose of using the decorators. Now with a particular proper example, we will be able to see that how it really happens. Now in this case, we have a particular method called method1, in which we are trying to give a particular argument as function. Now we have an inner method over here which is printing like welcome to Edureka, and we are calling off the function called arg_func, and then we are trying to print execute is done. So between the welcome to Edureka and the execute is done, we are trying to run a particular function which is passed on as a particular argument. So you can see that method 1 is being given a particular argument called function. So you not only can give the keywords or strings or integers or actual values, you can also pass on the particular functions here. Now we have another method called method 3, in which we are trying to print simple hello Python here. Now in the calling mechanism, you can see that we are trying to have a mechanism where we are saying that argument is equal to method 1 with a particular argument called method 3. So we are giving method 3 as an argument to the method 1. So which will really mean that the particular method 3 will be executed between the execution of welcome to Edureka and execute is done. So arg_func will be replaced with method 3, and that's how you will be able to get the overall mechanism. Now the main part is the decorators here. Now argument is equal to method 1 bracket method 3. This is what I'm trying to make argument as a function, in which I'm calling a function inside a function here. So you cannot directly call a particular function with a particular argument with a function as an argument there. Instead, you have to create a decorators over here, and in this case we are using the arguments as a particular decorator. So in which the function is provided, I'm passing on the method 1 as a function to the argument here, but also I'm using, or I'm giving the method 3 as an argument to the method 1. And once this is executed, you will see the end result like welcome to Edureka, then hello Python is executed and then executed there. So with this you will be able to see these 3 different outputs executed all together, and you will get a series of details or information about this one. So this is how the decorators are used and implemented in Python programming language. So let's see about some examples here and try to understand that how exactly these different concepts and these execution works. So let's go to the Jupyter there and try to run some examples on this one. Now let's go with these particular demos on this one here. Now we have a particular class and we are running this over here in this one. We are just trying to call upon a particular method of this particular class, and that's what we are trying to do here. So this is the complete document here in which we are trying to see that how the different executions can be performed in this one. So in this second example, we are making use of the self one here. Now we have a class Edureka in which we have method 2 here, and we are defining self. Now when we are doing like object 2 is equal to Edureka, so what is happening that we are simply trying to run the particular Edureka. The object is created here. Now when I run the particular method 2 here, it's just trying to print the self here, which is nothing but the class. Definitely it will print the particular class object of Edureka. That's what printed here. Now second, it also printed the ID of this one. So this class ID is this which we are getting here. Since the particular object is holding up the class only, so it's an object of a particular class. So that is the reason why when I do the ID on object, that is also showing us the same memory address here. Memory address is of class of the self itself, and this is of the particular object. This next example, we are using the same method 3 here. So method 3 is available here. In this one, we have a particular print statement called hello. We are giving like these 2 arguments in this one. We have a particular object 3 here, which is showing that Python. Now that's what we are trying to create a particular class here. And of this particular object 3 method, we are trying to call that one in this. So with this, what will happen that we will be able to give, or we will be able to execute, and it will print hello, and the programming is also printed over there. So here we are not using the self keyword, but here we are using the particular name of the class. So you can either give the self keyword or you can use the class name. Now once it is done, so you will be able to get the hello programming over here, because this A will be replaced with programming, and here it will be concatenated and will be printed to you. Now let's talk about the variables and attribute scope. Over here we have a global variable called 10. Then we are using a particular class animal, and we are using a local variable as 20. Now in this method 4, I am using a particular print statement, and I am saying like local variable is equal to plus, like it will be like local variable is equal to local variable plus 1. So plus is equal to is the shorthand for that. So local variable value is getting particular executed, and 1 is getting added there. So what will happen that a particular 21 value will be printed. First statement will be the print statement, welcome to animal class, and then the second value will be 21, because the value of local var is 20 and 1 is added to that. That is the reason why 21 will be printed. Now how this is happening? Because when I'm calling, I'm using a particular object called tiger and putting up a particular class variable here. This is a particular object which I have created and I have called with method 4. So these two statements are getting executed because I have called the method called method 4. Now when I am trying to run for the global variable, that will be the 10 value that is always present, because that's the particular global value. Now when I'm trying to search, or when I'm trying to get the value of tiger.localvar, now we know that local var is something which is modified as 21. You can see here that this self keyword is used, which means that I'm trying to override. This is not a local function variable inside this particular method here. It is actually this class variable which is getting overridden. This one is nothing but trying to fetch the particular class variable over here, and that is where you will be able to get the value 21, because it's already modified. This is animal.localvar is something which we are trying to fetch. So we are getting 20 value over here because it's modified. It's defined at the level of class. So this particular variable will be printed on as 20 here. And similarly, we are trying to have like animal.localvar25. So only because this is a class variable which we are trying to modify. So here this particular value, when we are trying to fetch like animal.localvar, that is where we are getting 25. But tiger.localval, which is nothing but the object, that will always remain 21. So that particular value is getting modified because of the method 4 function there. But if you want to change the particular class variable, which is this one, local_var, in that case you can always use the particular name of the class directly. So this is accessible through the class, that is why it's called as particular class variable, and this is a normal variable which is because fetched from the particular tiger object. So you can see that how the different scope actually works and how we can work with different particular content here. So let's see the similar kind of concept here also. We have a class called Edureka, then x is equal to 10, and we have method 1 where x is equal to 20. We are printing x. Now this is a part of the method here, so we will come to that point one by one. First of all, I'm creating an object called object1 with the class called Edureka. Now we are calling a method 1 called with the parameter called 20. So x will be assigned as in 20 here. Now here internally locally I'm assigning a value called 20. So definitely when I'm doing a print here, so that will be printed as 20. Now when I say self.x, which means that it's not something I'm trying to access the local. It is something I'm trying to access the local variable of class here. So this variable is 10. So that is the reason why I'm able to get the value called 10. Now these two values are totally different. So definitely the memory address will be totally different on this one. So this is how when I execute the method 1 with a particular argument called 20, these 4 lines of output will be generated. Now I'm running a print statement called object1.x, which means that I'm trying to get the particular value of using the object here. So the x will be 10 here. And the second one I'm trying to fetch using the class called Edureka. So at that time only we are getting the value x here. Now why we are getting the object variable attribute x and class variable as x both as the same value? Because in the method 1 I did not perform any kind of activity on self.x. So we just trying to get that particular value, but we did not did any kind of modifications like we did in the previous one. So here we did not modify anything over here. So in this one we are trying to do a modification to a local variable called x here. But if we do like self.x and do some operations to that, so in that case we will see some difference over here in this execution. But right now we are not doing any kind of execution to that or any kind of modification to that. We are just pending some content to the x only here. Now we are assigning the value called object1.x as 25. Now in this case what will happen? First of all, the class value Edureka.x will always be 10 because that's the particular class variable. Now object1.x will be 25. Why? Because I have overridden this value over here. So that value I have overridden. So that is the reason why I'm getting a particular value called 25 here. And definitely when both the values are totally different, one is 10 and one is 25, we will get the different memory address over here for both the values. So this is how the execution really happens and how we will be able to know the different kind of executions and particular performance over here. Then the built-in attributes. So when we execute this one, so all these built-in attributes are executed. Dict, doc, name, class name, Edureka is picked up. So there is no documentations mentioned here. So this is the dictionary attributes of this class. This is the module here and this is the basis. So there you're getting the class object in that one. So these are the built-in class attributes. In very rare cases we will be using it, but definitely we have that functionality that if at any moment of time we want to use, we will be able to refer them. Then some examples related to the public, protected and private attributes. Now in this case I'm able to access the public and protected because I'm trying to access it with the help of a particular object here. But private is something we will not be able to access directly, not in this particular way. Yes, we can access it, but that is something which we will be doing in some next examples. But in this case, you can see that all the three particular things were available there, and we were simply not able to get those kind of attributes. So the private attribute and the protected and public, all the attributes was configured over here, but simply I was not able to get that one. And if you really want to get that particular private one, you have to concatenate the class name, and once you use the class name over there, you will be definitely able to get that third value also over here. So now you can see that all the three values are being fetched for you. And if you feel that you want to get the particular value all together again, the private value again without prefixing the class, then again definitely that will fail you for you. So this is failing for you, but this is something which will be successful for you, that how you will be able to pick that particular class attribute over there. Now you can create some kind of these methods also. So depending on these particular methods will be created. So you have public, protected and the private methods over here. So we can have this. Now just like the particular attribute, just like the particular ways that we have executed in the previous ones, we will not be able to have any kind of access. Here we are trying to get those attributes, public, private and protected. Similarly here also, if you see, the implementation is almost same only. So when we try to access the private, so private will only be able to accessible when we append the particular class name over there. So using the class name, that is the way that how we will be able to fetch the private one outside the class. As you can see that all of them are getting successful. If this employee keyword is somehow missed out, definitely you will not be able to fetch or you will not be able to call upon it. So this is very important when you want to call it outside a particular class here. Now here we have a class employee, we have domain data. This is the same thing which we have done in the particular theory concepts also. So here what we are happening is that we are assigning the value called big here, and the particular ID is 101. So we are providing these two attributes, we are setting up these attributes of this object, and that is the reason why when I'm trying to do a particular fetch of these attributes, I will be able to get the same one. Similarly, I have established a particular class variable I have provided over here as small. So when I'm trying to fetch that value, so I'm getting a particular attribute called small here, and that's how I will be able to get the employee ID as 100. Because I am not overriding that value, and the same value which is available there in the class will be printed on over here, and the particular object one attributes will remain there itself. So you can see that you can override the values, you can override these attributes there, these variables mentioned in the class, but if you're not doing it, then all the default values will be picked up. Similarly here also we can see that the same kind of approach is there. So we are trying to have a particular domain over here as in data and employee ID as 100. Now here we are setting up the particular domain as a particular big here, and we are setting up the employee ID as 101, and similarly we have object 2 here with the employees. So we have employee here, object 2, and we have a particular employee here in this one. Now in this case, what is happening that the value is not getting overridden because of the fact that we were using some constructors over here in this one, and this really helps us to set the particular value. So object 1 dot domain is something which is coming up as in data, and the 101 is setting up as the employee ID. So these two values we are getting up over here. And similarly for object 2, since we were not using any kind of overriding mechanism, so the same values has been picked up over here. So similar like the previous example, this is also getting executed and you are getting the response out of over here. Now let's talk about the constructors and destructors over here. Now in this one, we are having a constructor where I'm trying to print a particular statement called constructor. If I don't call this del object over here, which means that the particular destructor is only called upon when we delete the object. Now I was trying to delete the object, and that is where the destructor was called upon. So it's okay if you can have only the constructor part there, but it's always fine to have a destructor, because whatever the processing you are doing in constructor, that should also be closed when we are trying to call for the destructor here. So you can also have the constructor, multiple constructor. This particular example we have already discussed in the slides also, where we have a particular init, particular main constructor here, and depending on that constructor we are able to get the year value. So 2016, 2015 and 2014 we are getting, because we are trying to call the methods and we are trying to call the particular constructor here. So every time we are able to fetch the correct particular year value which we are trying to pass on as into particular methods here. So this will help us to understand that how the different values are being fetched up and how we will be able to get all these particular attributes and this particular content over here in this one. And the last one is the decorators. Now decorators is used in which we can basically have a particular function decorated inside a particular function as an argument. Here we have a method 1 in which we are providing a particular function as an argument, and then we have an inner method. Now within the inner method 2 print statements, we have an execution of this function which we are passing on as an argument here. Now if you see closely here in the argument is equal to method 1 method 3, this is where I'm basically primarying handing over method 1 to the argument here. That is the activity we call it as decorators, because method 3 over here is a particular function which is declared or defined separately, and we are passing it on as a particular argument here. This is the way that how we can actually give or we can decorate a particular function inside a function, so that we can have some kind of generic executions over here. And the last one is also related to the decorators, which is again trying to explain us that how we can give a particular function called upon or executed over here. And in this one we are trying to have the two values like 10 and 20 assigned over here. So this is the function 3. We are just trying to do the function 3 here, and in this one we are trying to have two values like 10 cross 20, which will be printed as in 200 over here. So this is the way that how you can have the execution. And what really happens over here, that primarily what happens is that function 1, this is the decorator we are trying to use over here, that first of all the particular function 1 will be executed, and this function 1 is something which we are trying to execute, and then what will happen that the print statements like welcome to 1, welcome to 2 and welcome to 3 will be executed over there. So we have a particular function declared, function 3, in which we are just trying to do a particular welcome to 3 execution here, and it's just returning a value called x into y. Now here then as an argument here, argument function, we are trying to provide that value, and corresponding to the value the multiplication of 10 cross 20 will happen, and it will show us the value called 200. So these are some of the examples which really helps us that how we can use some basic classes concepts, oops concepts, and the decorators functions. All these things can be understood with this live examples here. So that's it for this particular demo. So we saw some good amount of demos and some practical scenarios to understand in depth that how this different execution really happens and how we were able to get all these particular programs executed properly. That's it for this particular topic. I hope you liked it. Thanks.